The Harvest Lord.
Thyrsus is, of course, it's the anise staff. It's the stalk of the anise plant, or the fennel stalk. It's a very abundant herb, a very potent and powerful healing herb, a tool of ancient esoteric alchemy, and a symbol of the fertility and the fecundity of nature itself, as Dionysus actually is. And of course, the symbolism of Dionysus is actually Jesus. Dionysus is a precursor and an exact epithet of Jesus. Jesus was literally, Jesus Christos was literally modeled after the archetypal mytheme of the slain harvest lord, the slain harvest god of wine and the agricultural season, which is why Jesus turns water into wine at the end of the season, which just as the sunlight grows the golden crops and then is harvested at the end of the season, and where the water that you use to water the water in the grapes then becomes fermented into wine, storing at the end of the season, at the end of the agricultural harvest, which is why Jesus was a farmer. Jesus is with the wheat and the tares and the crops and the harvest, and he's the reaper and the sower, because it's all about the crops of nature, and it's all about the cycles and the seasons that the sun goes through on its path on the hero's journey, or the path of the fool, throughout the annual year, throughout the annual season, throughout the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 houses of the year, which is exactly why it's Jesus and the central sun, the central hub, surrounded by the 12 apostles, the 12 posts of the annual year, the 12 months of the year, the 12 seasons. As Jesus goes through each of these houses, the sun goes through each of these houses and represents the archetype of the hero's journey, of the cycle of nature itself. So of course that's what Dionysus is, literally just a snapshot in time, just a singular archetype of this overarching mytheme of nature itself. And so this is of course why, all of these slain harvest lords, these slain archetypal agricultural harvest lords, which is exactly why literally comes from its predecessor as Osiris, who is also the agricultural grain fertility harvest lord, is a fertility harvest lord, just as in the Bible it says Jesus was also the Lord of the harvest, which comes from Dionysus, which comes from Osiris, who was also the agricultural fertility harvest lord of the season, who all of these slain lords, they all went to the underworld at the end of the season, where they were all slain, and then they died, and then they were resurrected, because it's all the ancient story of the sun and astrotheology, the cycle of the light of the world, the Son of God, which is why Osiris is literally the same exact depiction as the Fool of the tarot, which comes from Osiris, because it's the path of the Fool, the path of the sun, which is the hero's journey throughout the annual season, the annual archetypal year, which is why Osiris goes into the tomb, and why the staff of Osiris is literally where the thyrsus comes from. It comes from the pine cone staff of Osiris, which is the caduceus staff of the human anatomy, of the spinal column, which is exactly this pineal gland sits at the center of the cycle, which is literally the 0 point of the skull, which is literally the central sun of consciousness inside your head, which is literally represented by the pine cone. And this is why the pineal gland is surrounded by its 12 disciples, in other words, which are the 12 cranial nerves. And so this is literally why we have Jesus depicted, who sits directly at the top of the tree of life, of the Kabbalistic tree of life, which is this human central nervous and spinal system, the spinous system. And so that's why it's depicting the caduceus standing harmonic wave of the tree itself, the tree trunk itself, which is the axis mundi. Again, Christ sits atop the axis mundi, and that's why he's obviously surrounded by the central nervous system of the 12 cranial nerves. Oh yeah, and this reminds me again of back what we covered in Symbols of Power Part 2, or was it Part 3? I can't remember, but was the etymology of the pineal gland itself, the epiphysis cerebri, the epiphysis cerebri, which I like to pronounce the epiphysis cerebri, because the epiphysis, the epiphysis of the pineal gland, is literally where the epiphany occurs. The epiphany is the realization, the self-realization, the apex, the pinnacle, the capstone, the absolute, the most high, the culmination of the experience, the illumination experience, the top, the utmost, the pinnacle. But so that's where you have the epiphany, the light bulb goes off, or goes on, should I say. And so that's the epiphany of the epiphysis cerebri, is the pineal gland is. And so of course this is where we get the epiphany of Christ. As an epiphany literally comes from Greek, meaning to reveal, which is literally, it's a revelation. It's the divine inspiration, the revelation. It's the rapture. It's the epiphany. It's the samadhi, which is of course why the Epiphany of Christ is the Christian feast during Christmas season that celebrates the revelation of God incarnate as Jesus Christ, which is within you, is that you are the revelation. And I'm speaking allegorically here, I'm not like a fundamentalist Christian perspective, but this is the underlying truth, the underlying actual science, the physical anatomy, the physiology behind all of these religions, and especially behind the scriptures. This is what it all means and what it's all pointing to. And it's multiple layers deep, but it begins with the physical human anatomy, and then it extends outwardly into the actual cosmos and the astronomical sense as well. And that's why I refer to this science as astrophysiology. And I also refer to this directly as what I call metaphysiology, which is beyond just physical structure of the body and into the actual above and beyond what forms and what gives meaning to the human body and what gives structure and purpose and all of that to it. Greek epiphany literally comes from the prefix of epi, meaning above or on to, above, beyond as well, and plus phanein, meaning to show, and from Proto-Indo-European ba, meaning to shine. And so this is why Greek feign, this is the verb phanein, meaning to show, but the Greek root feign means to shine. It literally means light. It means fire, light, shine, bright, which again from Proto-Indo-European ba, meaning to shine. And so, of course, this is why the epiphanes is literally the revelation by the shining of the light. The illumination is what it is literally all about. A divine manifestation or a revelation, an illumination experience. Okay, and so... Alright guys, I'm terribly sorry, but that we are out of time.